Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Wednesday. We're halfway through the week now. It feels like it's in touching distance, the Premier League. Once again, Arsenal head into Liverpool on Saturday evening for that tricky looking game at Anfield. Can they make it 11 unbeaten? Can they end the Anfield hoodoo? It's going to be difficult, but they're certainly going there full of confidence after what has been a very, very good 2 months for Mikel Arteta's side. So I'll talk about that match a little bit more in today's video, looking at some of the decisions facing Mikel Arteta, looking at the team news ahead of it as well. Also a little bit of a debate about Eddie Nketiah and Folarin Balogun. Done a piece that went live on Goal this morning talking about those two. So please do head over to find it on my social media if you want to give it a read, looking at their situation ahead of the January transfer window. But I wanted to start first of all today, a little bit of sort of team news ahead of the game against Liverpool on Saturday that we're all building up to now, and expressively looking at Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, because there have been stories emerging in the last couple of days about possible injury for Auba. He didn't play for Gabon in their second game during the international break. Played in the first, scored the winner, but Gabon didn't qualify despite that win for the playoffs or anything like that for the World Cup qualifiers. And Auba, stories emerged from Africa that he, instead of staying with the Gabon team, he got a private jet back to London. Now, there were rumours about a possible injury for Auba, but I'm being told that is not the case and that he is fine. He's training today at London Colney, and it was just a sort of pre-planned thing with Gabon for him to come back early should they not do enough in that first game, or should results not go their way in the first game, that would leave the second game with something riding on it. It didn't. They didn't qualify because of results elsewhere. That meant that the second game didn't have anything on it, and because of that, Gabon agreed to release him early, and he has flown back to Arsenal. So he is training. He's not injured as far as I'm aware. I've been told he's training today at London Colney and that he is fine to play on Saturday. So good news on that front. And then we get to Thomas Partey, who's the major sort of talking point when it comes to injuries ahead of the game against Liverpool. Obviously missed the whole of the international break, didn't go away with Ghana with this groin issue he's had that ruled him out of the Watford game before the international break. We're speaking to Mikel Arteta on Friday morning, 9 a.m. his press conference. We got confirmation of that yesterday. So 9 a.m. press conference from Mikel Arteta. We might get a proper official team news update from Arsenal on Thursday evening, perhaps ahead of that press conference. If not, we'll certainly hear more from Mikel in terms of updates on players. But as far as I'm aware on Thomas Partey, all parties are hopeful that he could be involved on Saturday. Obviously wasn't ready to go away with Ghana with that injury that had him ruled out against the Watford game. It would have been too much of a risk. He stayed, has been working on it during the international break with the medical department. Arsenal been, trying to make sure he's okay to feature against Liverpool. And as it stands, fingers crossed, it's looking like he's winning his fitness battle to play at Anfield, and that he could well be available, which would be a big, big boost for Arsenal. I thought Ainsley Maitland-Niles played very well when he came in against Watford, but I think when you go to Anfield, you want Thomas Partey in the heart of your midfield if you can have him, and it looks like, fingers crossed, that Arsenal could well have him available. We'll obviously find out over the next couple of days for sure. It'll be interesting to see if Arsenal release any training edits or photos over the next coming days to see if Thomas Partey is on the pitch. From what I'm aware, as of yesterday, he hadn't been out on the pitch yet. He was doing all his work inside in terms of that recovery process. But the plan was that once everyone got back from the international break and everyone got back out on the pitch, that Thomas Partey would hopefully join in with that. And so fingers crossed, like I said, that is the case. So that's the latest on Aubameyang and Thomas Partey ahead of Saturday's big game at Liverpool. Just looking further ahead to that match and looking at some of the decisions facing Mikel for it, I think the big thing is going to be revolving around Thomas Partey. If he is fit, that's going to make things slightly easier. I think that Mikel will stick with a 4-4-2. Should everyone be fit, I think he'll stick with a 4-4-2 that we've seen. There is must be a big temptation to go with three at the back for this one. We know what's going to happen at Anfield. It happens every time. It's not just to Arsenal, it's for everyone. Liverpool with their intensity, their pressure, their high press just pin teams back. So there could be the temptation to go with three at the back, maybe play with wing backs. You could almost put Kieran Tierney in on the left side of centre back and play Nuno Tavares at the left wing-back role, given Tavares' form before the international break. It's going to be quite harsh if he is dropped. And so there is the option of going for 3 at the back. You can then have Ben White on the right, Gabriel in the middle, Kieran Tierney on the left. You can have Nuno as the left wing back, Tomiyasu as a right wing back, and that gives you certainly a very firm base, you would think. It gives you some strong options in the air, players who can attack down the flanks, and good ball carrying ability with Ben White, who can come out and kind of make an extra man in midfield at times. So there is that option for Mikel Arteta should he wish, and it must be tempting. But I still got a slight feeling we might stick with the 4-4-2 that we've seen recently and play Laka sort of as the deeper of the two, almost dropping into the number 10 role behind Aubameyang, and then you'd have Thomas Partey and Sambi as the two sort of hold-in midfielders, if you like, although both do have license to go forward, and then you've got Smith Rowe, Saka either side. It's going to be a key decision, that one, because would that leave Arsenal a little bit too open at Anfield? There's certainly a case to say that it might. But there's also certainly a case to say, well, why change something that's clearly working at the moment and you're playing well? They did it. They played like that at Leicester, and it worked. It worked well. They got the win. They, for 30 minutes, 40 minutes almost, played really good attacking football with that, got themselves a lead, and then they sort of protected it in that second half when Leicester put them under pressure. So it can work, despite the extra space it might give teams, but then it could also play into Liverpool's hands a little bit, and that's why I think the 3 at the back would be a big, big temptation for Mikel Arteta, and he probably would have spent quite a bit of time during this international break planning exactly how to set things up at Anfield. So that's going to be a really interesting decision for me, what Mikel Arteta does when it comes to the system. And if he doesn't, if it is just a sort of straight 4-4-2 that we've seen recently, I think as long as Partey's fit, I think the only real decision Mikel's going to have to make then is what happens at left back. Do you bring Kieran Tierney back in? He's fit. He played well for Scotland during the international break. Or do you continue to reward Nuno Tavares for his excellent performances in Tierney's absence and start him up at Anfield? It would be a big, big test for Nuno Tavares, undoubtedly the biggest test of his career to date, going up against the likes of Salah, Mane, whoever's floating on around there, Trent bombing down the right hand side like he does and whipping crosses in. So it'd be a huge test for Nuno Tavares, and for such a young player and still such an inexperienced player, that might weigh on Mikel's mind a little bit, and you go with a more experienced option with Tierney, even if Tierney hasn't played many minutes recently. He's only played for Scotland really since the injury that he got. So I think that's going to be a big decision for Mikel as well. If you stick with a 4-4-2, it's going to be all about who plays at left back, I would say, for Arsenal. If you go three at the back, and then that gives you the option of playing both, protecting the defence a little bit more. Perhaps, yes, it's going to be a little bit more defensive, but you've got to think this is Anfield, this is Liverpool, despite the fact they lost at West Ham before the international break, despite the fact that they only drew with Brighton before that in the Premier League. This is still Liverpool, a very, very good team who are going to be right up there for the title, and it's a team that often destroys Arsenal at Anfield. We've seen it time and time again. It's a horrible place for Arsenal to go. Just been a miserable ground for them to visit in recent years. And so you do have to have that in mind as well when you're setting your team up. Do you want to sort of protect yourself a little bit, or do you go and try and take the game to them, so to speak, and try and do what you did against Leicester at the King Power Stadium, fly out the box, get yourself in front, and then perhaps protect what advantage you have given yourselves. Let me know what you think. What should Mikel do if everyone is fit for the game at Anfield? Should he go 3 at the back? Should he stick with 4-4-2? Do you bring Martin Odegaard in perhaps and take one of the forwards out? You'd think it would be Lacazette, or do you just stick with what you've seen in the last few games and go stick with Nuno Tavares, stick with Lacazette and Aubameyang up front and go 4-4-2 and take the game to Liverpool? Let me know what you think by leaving a comment below. Okay, quickly before I go out, I'll just flick on to Liverpool team news. I spoke about it in yesterday's video, how there were doubts over quite a few players, some of which got picked up injuries during the international break. It's a little bit clearer now in terms of what's going on at Liverpool. Sadio Mane, James Milner and Jordan Henderson, who were all doubts, they all trained yesterday at Kirkby. So you would think they're going to be fine to feature on Saturday. We know that Firmino's out, so he's not going to be involved. But Mane, Milner and Henderson are okay. There's no sign of Naby Keita. He obviously got injured against, it was United, wasn't it, when Liverpool went up and beat United at Old Trafford. He's not back yet. Curtis Jones as well. And we're not sure yet. I haven't had news on Andy Robertson, who limped off with what looked like it could have been a hamstring injury for Scotland. So a little bit clearer now what's going on at Liverpool. It's certainly maybe not the crisis that perhaps we were being led to believe it could be. And it certainly looks like Mane, Milner and Henderson should be all fit to be involved if selected for the game on Saturday. Okay, finally in today's video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that story that piece that I put out on Goal today, looking at the options when it comes to Nketiah and Folarin Balogun. I think it's going to be a really interesting decision what Arsenal make ahead of the January transfer window on these two strikers. Both young, so many similarities between the two, but then you've got one who's only 6 months left of his contract and who is not going to sign a new deal and is going to leave, and has made it clear via him and his agents that he wants to leave potentially in January if that can be done. And then you've got another one who's just signed a new long-term deal. So what do you do? Because I don't think you can get rid of both of them, because you've only got Aubameyang, Lacazette and Martinelli there. And Aubameyang's going away with the Africa Cup of Nations. We don't know how long he's going to be away, but hopefully he's not going to get injured or anything like that. You've got Martinelli, who, let's face it, we're not sure is an actual striker yet, tends to play more on the left-hand side. And then you've got Lacazette. It's not, you wouldn't want it, it's obviously, and it's unlikely, but there is a possibility that you lose Aubameyang and Lacazette in the space of a week to 2 injuries, and then suddenly, if you've let out both Balogun and Nketiah, you're left with Martinelli on his own. So I don't think you can let both players out. I think you can let one out, and then it's a case of what do you do. On paper, it seems simple, doesn't it? It's like, well, Eddie doesn't want to play here. Eddie wants to go. He's not signing a new contract. Get rid of him. Keep Balogun. But I'm not sure that's the right option. And I think it's a really interesting decision Arsenal are going to have to make, because I think Balogun's clearly not got the experience, and Nketiah has. Nketiah has shown that he can step up at senior level. He's played well in the 2 League Cup games he's played this season, scored in both of them. Balogun had a tricky start to the season. That's not his fault. He was thrown into it a little bit because of COVID. Probably wasn't expecting to play and start in that game against Brentford at the start of the season, but he didn't really look like he was absolutely ready to play in the Premier League. And so if someone does get injured, I think you'd probably fancy Nketiah to be involved more than Balogun at this stage of their development and this stage of their career over the second half of the season, should something happen to Aubameyang or Lacazette. So you've got that option. And also, I think if you let Eddie go, if a deal can be found, and that's not easy, that won't be easy, given he will have a lot better options in the summer if he waits around and goes for free. But should a deal be available for Eddie somewhere, and you let him go, then you're basically consigning Balogun to play in under-23s football for the whole season, because he's played it for the first half of the season, and if he stays, unless there are injuries, then he's very likely to go the whole season playing under-23s football, because he's not going to get any chances in the Premier League. It's like looking at Nketiah, he hasn't played any minutes in the Premier League this season, so it'll be very similar for Balogun, and that's going to do his development no good whatsoever. He is absolutely ready for a loan. He should go in January, get 4 or 5 months of senior football under his belt, and come back in the summer and be ready for pre-season, and potentially to give Mikel a decision to make in the summer. So my personal opinion on this is keep Eddie Nketiah, let him go for free in the summer as he wants to, and let Balogun go in January. Get him the loan move that he badly needs. I think that is going to absolutely help his development a hell of a lot more than staying and not really getting any minutes in the Premier League, potentially getting a few run-outs in the cup games, early stages of the FA Cup, something like that. It just doesn't really do it for me. So it's an interesting one. What would you do? Who should go? If one of them goes, who should it be in January? Would you keep Eddie or would you keep Balogun? I've said my piece. Personally, I think it's Balogun. Balogun should go on loan. You just keep Eddie for the remainder of the season. Let him hang around if you need him, and then let him go for free in the summer. And I just think it'll give Balogun the opportunity to go away on loan and really get the football that he needs, the senior football he needs, because he's outgrown under-23s level. He's too good for it. He's not learning anything more playing in under-23s. He's already had half a season of it this season, which he shouldn't have had, really. Now is the time for him to go away on the Championship, something like that. And Middlesbrough, who have been linked with him, get some good minutes under his belt in senior football, and I'm sure he'll come back a much, much better player in the summer if that happens. But hey, if you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know. Leave a comment below on that one. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate your time. As always, please do head over to goal.com and you'll find more about that Balogun Nketiah debate and the story that I've put up on that line this morning. Give it a read. Let me know what you think about that. And enjoy the rest of your day. The sun's shining. Get out, enjoy the sun for once before the rain inevitably comes back as we head towards Anfield. Like I said, Mikel Arteta press conference tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Keep an eye out for that one. I'll try and do a video afterwards discussing what he had to say, looking at the very latest team news, give my predicted 11 for Anfield, that sort of thing. Have a good day, everyone. Speak to you soon.